Which one is brass?
Yep, you read it right. This entire video is about making a brass washer. It has to be pretty specific for what I'm making. This really is just some surplus footage. A video that I'm working on right now. It's about a board game, and the entire thing is made out of brass. Well, I need a very specific part, and nobody's going to watch a video that spends 10 minutes making a brass washer. So I thought the process was interesting enough that this could be a standalone second channel video. So I hope you get a kick out of it. There's some kind of clever enough methods for somebody like me who just doesn't have access to machining stuff. They're just problems to solve. If I don't have what I need, I find a way around it. Two things to note here. First of all, the compass lead has been replaced with a sharpened nail so that I can scratch the brass. The second thing to pay attention to is that you have to scratch all the way through the lacquer that's on the brass. If you don't scratch the metal itself, you risk losing your mark. Remember this thing? It's worth it. It's worth having one. I do occasionally still use it. But for this project, if I were to do it again, because of the problems that I had, I would just end up using a grinder. There are definitely easier ways, but you get a big idea and you stubbornly follow through with it sometimes. Still, this device is worth having. It has got me out of some tough situations. This stuff gets hot while you're sanding it. You have to be careful. Right off camera, I probably have a little bucket of water that I dip it in every once in a while. Also, I didn't get the footage, but if you look at the center hole, I did use a countersink on it to try to get it nice and smooth in the middle. This bearing was purchased specifically for the project. I don't know exactly what it's called. I think it's called a flange bearing or a press fit bearing or something. The package just says radial bearing, so that's not very helpful. But it's only $3 at the hardware store. You should be able to find one if you want to make this project. This trick works pretty well. I ended up having to do it a couple times though because I had to resize this washer. And what I learned is that you should definitely use some oil. I used mineral oil and then it made it much easier.
I'm impressed with the process. It's within 2 thousandths, which is fair considering the grit of the sandpaper I was using and any eccentricity that would be in the bearing. So that'll work fine. Originally, I wanted to set this in, so I wanted to be just under 1.5 inches, but if it were held flush, the slop in the bearing is going to cause too much friction. Here it is just nested in, but I don't like that. So I'm going with this compromise, which will let the lip on this bearing go down in, but the washer itself will remain proud. I think this is the method I'm going to use. In which case, size wasn't so critical, but that's how it goes. Last thing that remains is to polish the face of it up. Hopefully now I'll be able to sand and polish all the way in so that later on when I put a nut over this axle, it will cover everything that isn't sanded.